What's going on, everyone? So earlier today, the Los Angeles Lakers ended up signing DeAndre Ayton, and it finally fulfilled the loss of Dorian Finney Smith. First off, it's great that the Lakers finally solved their center position and ended up solving their center position for potentially the long haul. Now, he did sign a 2-year deal. He actually went for exactly what I said he would. 2 years, $16 million, $8 million a year. Well, $16.6 million is what it was with the player option for the second year, right? Either way, I think it's a win-win for the Lakers. They also keep their flexibility for 2027, which is a big deal for them, apparently. They want to kind of keep the cap space open for a potential other star to come to pair alongside Luka Doncic, right? If DeAndre Ayton works out, you can always sign him to a new deal, always work it out, right? That summer, the plan is to essentially have your books clean, except for Luka Doncic and maybe potentially Austin Reeves. So you'd be able to re-sign DeAndre Ayton and go get another guy if you had to. You figure it out, right? Is the point. But one of the big losses this offseason for the Lakers was Dorian Finney Smith. Right, Lakers gave up 3 seconds and Maxwell Lewis in order to acquire Dorian Finney Smith in that trade, which, it would have, the D'Angelo Russell thing, that's essentially a wash, right? D'Lo, even if you don't make the trade, because I know somebody's going to be like, oh, well, you put D'Lo in it too. Yes, but you got to keep in mind, like, again, D'Lo was likely leaving regardless. So for the Lakers to land Dorian Finney-Smith, give up some assets, and then just lose him for nothing, it's not a great look, right? Like, Dorian Finney-Smith was a very good basketball player for the Lakers. And don't get me wrong, we still really could use Dorian Finney-Smith. It would have been really nice to keep Dorian Finney-Smith. But when he ends up, departing and leaving, it opens up the full mid-level exception. And then it becomes, okay, well, what are you going to get that's going to offset the loss of Dorian Finney-Smith that would be worth losing the assets? I even talked about when he ended up departing, made the whole video about it. I was like, it depends on what the Lakers do, right? Because you're losing Dorian Finney-Smith for contract long-term reasons, which to the Lakers' defense, regardless, it probably was going to happen just because. Is it really worth it for the Lakers to give him a 4-year deal, right? Like for the Houston Rockets, kind of yes, because you're trying to win now. You could use his veteran presence. You have so much young core and talent, right? Like you're not in the situation the Lakers are. It's a very different situation. Also, if you're Houston, you're trying to lure him away from the Lakers. So you have to incentivize him more in order to do so. So you kind of lessen the Lakers, better your team, right? So it made sense for a team like Houston. But a team like the Lakers, does it make sense to pay him $13 million a year once he gets, 35, 36 years old? Probably not. Right? It's probably in your best interest to go younger. And you're seeing Rob Pelinka, to his credit, doing a better job of going the youthful route, particularly out on the wing and the perimeter. Right, and I imagine that Lakers are going to continue to find those gems and stuff. But I do think now's the time to go. Can you go get some of these veterans? Can you go get a DeAnthony Melton? Can you go get a, maybe a trade for an Andrew Wiggins, something like that? Right, just kind of using those as an example. Can the Lakers now pull off some moves to kind of upgrade at the perimeter, maybe even in the starting unit, particularly at the 3? Because I do have concerns about the Lakers' defense, right? And save that for another day, but. I do think that this is something that is really beneficial to the Lakers of like, hey, you lost Dorian Finney-Smith. It opened up your full mid-level exception. Okay, what do you do with that now? If they would have went and signed, Brook Lopez and Al Horford with it, it's like, okay, yeah, you solved a need at the center position. It was not like, that wasn't ideal. But no, instead, the Lakers end up getting a 26-year-old DeAndre Ayton, who, if you told me today, right, you could have DeAndre Ayton or Dorian Finney-Smith, who would you choose? I would take DeAndre Ayton all day, including Sunday. There are a lot of risks to DeAndre Ayton. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to make it sound like, it's all sunshines and rainbows. It might be. But he also has a lot that he needs to prove for himself. There's a lot that he needs to kind of, rebrand his image on. But he's younger than Dorian Finney-Smith. When he's at his best, better than Dorian Finney-Smith. And on top of that, he solves the biggest need that the Lakers have, which is the center position. So not only did you get, an upgraded player, upgraded age, but you also solved your biggest need. Worst case scenario, you have Rui Hachimura, Jared Vanderbilt, Dalton Connect, plus, you know, the young guys that you drafted like Thero and stuff. Like, I want at least one two-way guy again, like kind of a Dorian replacement, but you're fine in that regard. If you told me you had to trade Dorian Finney Smith for DeAndre Ayton, right, straight up, you would do that all day. So the fact that that essentially is what happened. Oh yeah, and by the way, the Lakers also got Jake Laravia, who is 23 years old, who gives you kind of that Rui insurance and stuff like that can come in. Yes, Jake Laravia. Like, if it was Dorian Finney-Smith or Jake Laravia, long-term wise, I'd take Jake Laravia. But right now, for a team that's trying to win with LeBron and Luka, it's Dorian Finney-Smith all day. However, don't sleep on Jake Laravia. I really like that pickup for the Lakers, right? I really think that Jake Laravia is a guy that I think is going to fit in immediately. He's 23 years old. There's plenty of room, plenty of upside. He was averaging like 18 a game before he ended up fracturing his finger when he was with Sacramento, right? So he was starting to really kind of come into his own. He's a guy that can be that catch and shoot 3-and-D guy. You know, he's not a hyper athletic player, but he is athletic. He has some athleticism. He tested good in agility and lane, but he's not like, you know, a hyper athlete. Like Ayton is actually like a hyper athlete, right? But still, like, you look at a guy like Jake Laravia, has the potential to be a 3-and-D guy. I've seen people be like, oh, he's not a great defender. He's rated as a B+ defender in like literally every statistical category. So he is a good defender, right? So if he can kind of buy in, you have that youthfulness, you have that upside potential and growth, you add that to, you know, DeAndre Ayton, who gives you, for being honest, he's the best center the Lakers could have gotten, right? Without a doubt, he's the best center. It's just, will he fulfill the upside necessary to justify him? Right? Because again, there is a path to this where it goes pretty bad. But this was huge for the Lakers because, again, it sucks whenever you lose a guy like a Dorian Finney Smith, which, again, we really could use, you know, a Dorian Finney Smith. But this was the way to make this happen. How do you recover from the loss of a guy like Dorian Finney? If you told me we traded 3 seconds D'Angelo Russell and Maxwell Lewis, who I was high on, right? Would you, if I traded those assets for DeAndre Ayton and Jake Laravia? One, I would have been like, you're probably not going to be able to get those two for that. Two, I would have been like, that's an absolute home run. So this was great. Right? However you want to kind of break it down, you know, the chain of command, right? You know, like people go, oh, you turn these players into Anthony Davis and Anthony Davis into Luka, so really you turn these players into Luka, like, you know, stuff like that. Oh, in a championship, by the way, right? Like, but point is, the Lakers did a really good job kind of sewing up what was needed to sew up, and this is great. I'm really excited to kind of see how this all plays out. But look, job's not finished. Lakers have a lot to do still, so they need to make sure that they're locking in, buckling down, handle the business that they need to handle. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass question you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.